Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of Courageous Conversations 2. My name is Raven Dixon, and as always, today I'm here with
Kim Bracey, Chief Executive Officer of YWCA York.
Thank you so much for being on this episode yet again. So today's topic, we're actually going to be talking about empowering women of color. And as we dive into this topic, I want to bring to light YWCA York's mission, which is to eliminate racism, empower women, and to promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. With empowering women, this is not just about inclusion, but elevation as well, to help honor identities as well as ensuring access to equal opportunities.
I definitely agree with that, Raven, and this whole topic has excited me since you developed it and put it out there as one that could be of conversation for us. Empowering women of color. I mean, just that statement alone. And then you think about those women that have made such impact throughout our history, throughout our everyday lives, throughout the life of even YWCA.
Yeah.
York, even. And it almost gives me chills. I think that's why it excites me so much, particularly as a woman of color. And I prefer to call myself a Black woman. I think walking in that space and knowing or figuring out how I can help other women of color, Black women, Spanish women, women of color, women in general, really just kind of, puts the stamp on why I suggest to this position, why I work so hard every day to bring it to life. So empowering women of color. Let's get into it a little deeper.
I was gonna say, you've had a lot of hats in your time, and I think just being within a male-dominated field at one point, that must have been different and courageous.
Yeah, thank you. There's been a couple male-dominated fields.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I started, I guess, as an adult in the United States Air Force, right? And while we had uniforms that were very appealing, and skirts even for women, it's the military. Mm-hmm. And we all grew up knowing the military as a male-dominated arena, and even promotion into different roles was because they were men, mm-hmm. kind of thing. So finding my way, navigating that system to become a technical sergeant in the United States Air Force, and held a couple different roles while I was in the Air Force, I would encourage every young woman of color still trying to find out which way she wants to go when she grows up, to consider the military as a way. There's all sorts of careers within the military, and it's almost a microcosm, or at least a mirror of society. Unfortunately, some of the ills that we know exist in our community exist on military bases or within the military. Empowering women is something you have to be as deliberate and intentional about in the military as we are in society. Some of my career, we call them specialties, in the military, I served as a substance abuse counselor. Yeah, substance abuse was pretty prevalent in the Air Force, and it depended in some cases on location. In Alaska, we saw a lot of alcoholism. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole talking about my positions in there, but as a woman of color in the Air Force, it was indeed courageous, but also very forming and shaping and aligning for my personality. And then, at some point in my life, I became the mayor, right?
At some point, yeah.
At some point. And one of the things that struck me immediately, Raven, was that there were few women that I could call on for mentorship or help that knew what it was like to walk in the shoes of a mayor as a woman. So many of my mentors and supporters, when I wore that hat, were indeed men, but men who had no problems empowering and promoting and shaping, which was very helpful as well. I have one example I can even share with you. I was invited to a meeting, maybe with a stakeholder, maybe with a member of my team, which were mostly men. And we walk into the room, and the gentleman in the room immediately went to the man and considered him the mayor.
And he didn't know.
They didn't know who was coming in the room, apparently. I don't know. That's the lesson 101, right? Know your audience.
Yeah.
But, the gentleman I was with quickly said, "Oh, no. She is our mayor."
And it's important to have people to correct that behavior.
Yeah, but how empowering, right?
Yeah.
To have a professional colleague, male, that stood up for me, kind of thing. So minor empowering, but at least in the moment, ready to react and support and poke me up, I guess, to be in the role that I was in. And I think for me, I just try to give back in that way. And I know we'll talk a little bit more, so I'll let you go to the next question. But empowerment for women in general comes in all different ways. And well, again, in those two professions, I didn't have too many women to help, but I had men that were very supportive.
I feel like I want to talk about like the discrimination aspect a little bit more because of how there's so many women that are afraid to take up space. And I think that not even just with like your professional history, but also like the personal aspects that you've brought up as well. I think they're very clear indicators of how to like get through those hard times while still maintaining and being someone to look up to. I think that's a big portion of like who you are, especially in the York community.
Thank you. And I own that, I guess. There's days that, it's like, okay, another added title or another added expectation. Because we as women are already carrying so many different loads and wearing so many different hats. And okay, now here's one more. But it's one I embrace. I don't even have to say try. It is part of my DNA to make sure another woman is successful, particularly a woman of color. And I try to do that, as you already indicated, personally, professionally, walking down the street. Another quick story, I was at a restaurant and a woman of color caught my eye that I had been standing there. I'm at the wait stand, waiting to be seated. And, staff's over here doing whatever. This woman of color caught my eye, and I don't know if she was in charge or whatever, but she immediately called them and said, "You kind of want to wait on her," kind of thing. And it was one of those things. It was just a connection, and I was like, okay, somebody sees me.
Yeah. Great.
But the rest of the experience was as horrible as it was standing there waiting to be seated. But in my mind, I realized I was treated awesome by this other woman of color. She is who is getting my tip.
Yeah. Directed to where it's given.
Yeah. Say that again?
Directed to where it's given.
Yeah. And it was, I don't know if I made her day, empowered her in any other kind of way, but beyond giving her the cash tip, I told her, "You've made my experience here worth it. Thank you." And I think taking those moments to make sure each other, particularly women, are fed, nurtured in a way that, kind of cracks down on some of the implied discrimination or the things that we feel like, I was treated pretty bad at this place. I left feeling pretty darn good about what I was able to do, and I'll go home and finish cooking my meal.
And I think that leads me into like another point I wanted to talk about of like how a lot of organizations need to do the work internally. And a lot of times it'll be broadcasted or posted in social media one way, but then what happens behind those closed doors and who's really having those conversations or uplifting the right people.
Yeah. I think even our efforts here, having courageous conversations, I'm hoping our listeners are peeling that away. I'm like, you know what? I might need to talk to another woman in my space or figure out a way to empower them. And even our conversation, as you said, I mean, I want to, when I speak these things and I'm reminded of it, I want to make sure I'm doing it as well too. Actions speak louder than any of our words, number one. And to be able to know that I helped out another young woman of color sort of makes my day. So empowering women of color is just one of those things I love being able to do.
It's at the foundation of who we are, really.
At the foundation of this organization, and I think it's in most of us as women of color. Again, DNA. It goes back to my grandmom and probably to her grandmother. So
just passing it all down.
Yep.
And so, as we are talking about this topic of empowering women of color, how are ways that we can help our listeners support women of color in their communities, in their backyards?
Yeah. YWCA York tries it all day long. Everything from the services we provide to, I'll say, our customers, from childcare, quality childcare, quality schooling, and another way of looking at it too, to our yoga classes, to our exercise classes in the pool of all age women. I think we do a good job in here. We need to communicate that a little bit more outside and invite friends and our neighbors in. Providing lessons in our pool to learn to swim for our communities of color is empowering. Water safety is one of those things that many of us in the Black and brown communities take for granted.
Yeah.
And it's if we just had that extra skill to learn how to save ourselves if tragedy was upon us in water, I think we would see a difference. So to me, that's as empowering as telling you look beautiful today and that you can do this. But we need those sort of strokes as well too. And I won't say little, but those words of encouragement, those actions, those hugs sometimes. Atta girl, you got this.
They help propel and move everyone forward.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that to one another and empowering them, or even saying thank you. I needed to hear what you said. I received that. I had a meeting earlier this morning, and another woman of color was saying something, and I was like, oh, I didn't quite look at it that way. Thank you. I don't know how it made her feel, but it was empowering to me to be able to hear that and receive it in that way. So I know here at YWCA York, with one another, daily in our meetings and our work, we try to live out our mission of empowering women and providing that safe place for people to feel like, okay, this is happening. This is a good place for this work to be done.
We're reflecting what's going on outside, and we do that internally as well.
That's right. So I'm honored to be working with such great people that feel that and do it as well. And you are one of those.
Thank you. I needed to hear that.
Well, thank you. I received that too. As we were talking earlier, I mean, I think back to even opportunities that I've had to serve as a reference for a woman to get a position. And most people that ask me to do that for them, it's not just because they know I know them, it's because I know that they can do the job and that I will give an honest opinion to the person that's calling. And when I do that, I just feel like, oh my gosh, this has been such a great thing to be able to help this person get this position, get into the school, any kind of references, if you will. And I don't take that lightly, that I'm asked, number one, to do it, but what I say, I know may carry a little weight and be the difference in that woman's life. And it's an honor to be able to do that, and it's also very empowering for me, and I'm hoping for them too, that they've gotten to their next mark of whatever. I mean, some of it has been college applications to upward mobility in their careers. So it's just so small things. I mean, I think it's a word that we use a lot these days, the word being empowering or empowerment. But at the end of the day, the action that can go along with that can make the difference in someone's life night and day.
And I love that you mentioned that, because it's important to be able to speak up someone's name in the rooms that they're not present in. And that makes such a big difference in their life and things that we don't see.
I mean, that's so powerful. Speaking up for someone that's not in the room means so much, particularly in our community, our greater community, where the minority populations are smaller and we're not always at the table. But if I can be at that table for Raven, it's my duty almost to speak up for her.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you, Raven.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to Courageous Conversations 2 with Kim Bracey and Raven Dixon, where bold voices inspire brave action. Until next time, stay courageous.